Hey everyone, hello and welcome to Magma Clubhouse. Ryan and Solomon here. I want to wish you guys a happy new year. Looks like we've got a few people that jumped in already here at the beginning, which is awesome. Just for posterity for the future and for anybody who is here, who has joined a live stream with us before, just to give you guys a quick background, Ryan has previously been hosting an episode that we called Magma Warm-Ups, and I think for sure that's absolutely something that we're going to continue to do. We decided to kind of add this stream into the mix, which I think is a bit more kind of open and welcoming to anybody in any skill level, not necessarily focusing on any particular subject. We can change this regularly. In this case, to give everyone a quick rundown of what we're going to do here. And in fact, what I'll do is let me go ahead and drop in our instructions. Anybody joining, you'll see instructions in the chat. This will require you to join the Magma Artspace, which we would love to have you in, and you should be able to join the canvas. So yeah, for today's stream, because this is a new one at the beginning of the year, Happy New Year to all. We decided to take the initiative here to try to come up with some sort of concept in creating a mural. So you'll see in the bottom left, we have our subject, which is very broad, creating a mural around the Magma logo. So I think it's dealer's choice. Whatever anybody wants to draw, feel free to jump in and start going. I don't know, Ryan, what are you thinking so far? Did you come up with any ideas yet?
Yes, I'm enjoying painting different primates at the moment. So I came across one today called the Brazza monkey. So I think I'll put that in, maybe an orangutan. There's got to be a pigeon somewhere. So
I had orangutan in my PureRef board as well.
Nice. I mean, they're such beautiful creatures. Because so many different expressions.
Yeah, truly. Truly. I know animals are a big focus for you. I was curious where that comes from.
I suppose from quite a young age, I've always been quite into animals, conservation. My mother was very into conservation, so that sort of transferred a bit onto me. And then when I was studying art at university, I was looking a lot at climate change and a bit of conservation. Those sort of ideas would come into my work, and I was trying to create things that expressed something about that. And after studies, got quite involved with environmental work as well. So it's always kind of been a part of life for me. And now I'm trying to find ways that I can actually use my art to benefit conservation efforts. So while I figure that out, I'll just keep painting some animals.
Very cool.
Mostly endangered species. That's where I focus my attention.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's amazing. That's a wonderful perspective and a great thing to focus art on as well. Something that has meaning. Always, I feel like just making an image based on something that you like is cool. But when you have like a personal attachment to it, there's more intention behind it.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, like coming from the fine art world, I found like a lot of the work that you're taught to create there is intended to go into a gallery. And for me, I suppose I couldn't quite see the kind of impact work would have in a gallery space. Whereas something like street art, for example, was far more interesting to me because of the wide scope of people that would get to interact with it. And it was really a way more accessible art form. So yeah, I kind of started looking into that. And comics and all these like other more accessible forms that people engage with on a sort of daily level. Because you have to make like a specific mission if you want to go to an art gallery or a museum. It's not something you stumble across, really.
Yeah, that's a whole nother can of worms, talking about the gallery life.
Yeah, for sure. It's difficult. It's really difficult. And there's obviously like amazing work that gets created for that, but it wasn't quite for me.
Yeah. I know that we've kind of briefly talked about it, but maybe it's worth discussing the conversation we just had with Stan Prokopinko on our channel, who also kind of went down that rabbit hole himself, kind of living the gallery life and doing that for a while, and then kind of slowly phasing out, and eventually we started Roco. But
Mm.
I found it really fascinating. I know I have a handful of friends that have stepped into the distance. It was really interesting to set things that are interesting, but what's
Yes, we got Vito in the chat there as well. Sorry, I lost my audio there for a moment.
Oh, no worries.
Technology today is not on my side.
Yeah, Vinny's giving us a shout out. Hey, Vinny, thanks for dropping in. So did you set any, do you do any like intentions or goals for New Year?
Not really, but I suppose I'm aiming to create more than I consume. That's
It's a great rule.
sort of the plan on a weekly basis. I think with everything going on in the world at the moment, or when is there not? There's chaos going on in the world, but it's easy to get really absorbed in everything and not focus on making art. Just watching in horror a lot of the time. So yeah, I kind of want to just sort of step away and try and I didn't make a lot of personal work over the last year, so I really need to change that. And yourself?
I'm very similarly. I think for me, a lot of my creative I'm so focused on TV. I have some obviously. I mean, for me, it's just draw more, and draw as much as I can. I have to say, like my creative insecurities. Of course, we all have them. They show when I start to draw, especially in situations like this where I have to do it in front of people.
Yeah. Yes.
But it's such a good thing, and honestly, it is an enriching thing to do, and it's a motivator. It kind of just like puts you in a place to like really, try to get better. And so, yeah, draw as much as I can. I used to do, when I was living in the West Coast for a while in the United States, and I used to do, my favorite thing to do was to kind of break things up is go take a figure drawing class or go do a live drawing class. That was always really fun. But it's kind of become, it's just, I feel like as my interests grow, there's so many tools and so many things to use. That's always the biggest challenge too, is like to stay fixed in one place and focus on one medium. That's the challenge for me.
Yeah. And you've been mostly focused on 3D stuff rather than putting pencil to paper, right?
Yeah, my education is in fine arts, and I studied the traditional stuff for many years, and that's kind of how I grew up. Like everybody, we all draw. Drawing was like my bread and butter and just my creative outlet. But then it's like you start getting into all kinds of other stuff, building, 3D printing, like all those types of things. It's a lot of distractions out there.
For sure.
And then you gotta have a job as well. So you're taking away time. It's like I'm envious of your, that your focus is in this particular sort of medium to be able to get really, really good at this.
Well, that's the plan, I suppose. No,
Well,
I haven't quite found my way there yet.
I think you're doing pretty good so far.
Thank you. So, when did you get into doing screen printing? 3D printing stuff.
I did actually do screen printing for quite a while, but 3D printing, crazy enough for me. I mean, I graduated high school in 2005, and that back then it was the 3D industry was very much growing. It was a very specialized skill, and I was lucky enough I was taking. It was kind of like I don't know if there's a term for this, like an intercollegiate thing where in high school I could go to the local community college and I could, and there was an art program, you could do all kinds of things. You could, there's engineering stuff. There was like ROTC, which is like, pre-military academy, military stuff. Every trade that existed, they had like a program for. And there was a guy that I went to learn comic book art from, and this was for my last 2 years in high school, my junior and senior year. And I started with him for about 6 months, and was just kind of going through stuff, and then started to, and then he had a sort of like a co-instructor that was teaching, or he was kind of just a tinkerer. His name is Jason Welsh. On YouTube, he's called Canned Mushrooms. And he was like one of those early guys on YouTube before anybody had a YouTube channel. He was doing the YouTube's life, and just making videos and using, 3D programs like Maya and ZBrush and 3D printing stuff and Unreal Engine. And every day I'd do my art stuff, and I'd go talk to him, and he'd show me stuff. And after a while, it was kind of like my attention transitioned into the 3D world. And I was actually doing 3D printing then in high school, while learning Unreal Engine, learning sculpting and modeling and things like that. And it was really interesting. I think looking back on it in hindsight, this is one of the pros about just traditional arts, is that, there's something to be said about learning and mastering this particular skill, being able to draw, learning perspective, being able to like ideate in your own ways. And without reference, like 3D, I find is really interesting because a lot of it is building from something that exists. Like the pure ideation comes from this stage, like coming up with the idea and having, being able to train your brain to think that way and effectively do it. So I found that I definitely developed some bad habits over the years in like pure creative pursuits by just like looking at stuff and making it,
Yeah. But don't you find that the next step there is starting to combine those things? Like you learn how these different things work as individual objects, but then you start seeing how those different things could interact or build upon one another, or the sort of mechanisms that build something up could be applied to another object that sort of comes from somewhere in your head.
Absolutely. It's funny you say that, because I've kind of, that's part of my resolution for this year, and my goals for this year is to focus on trying to do that, trying to harness all of these skills and abilities and bring them into a place where, it can be, for me, it's definitely nerve-wracking to step into a space where there's so many amazing 2D artists out there. And, I always kind of developed this like stigma attached to myself, or this like, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's ego, but it's wanting to be able to be considered really good at something. And I got really good at replication and building, but I didn't get very good at, just being able to like ideate. So I feel like at this stage, it is about kind of stepping back into this pure creation realm, drawing more, challenging myself to come up with unique ideas and execute, being able to use, these skills and combine them, not just do one or the other.
Yeah, for sure. I see what you mean. Do you remember what the first thing was that you put through the printer? The 3D printer.
Oh man, it was like, I feel like with sculpture, I got really obsessed with sculpture. I remember I took a lot of clay sculpture classes and doing a lot of digital sculpture. And usually the thing you start with is anatomy, just like you do with drawing, from the fundamentals, or at least for character design. But I did a skull, just a regular old human skull.
Nice. Yeah, it's definitely something I would like to play around with. But seeing things in 3D is something I've always struggled with. It was one of my more challenging subjects at art school as well. Just doing sculpture, seeing things in the round, messed with my brain a little bit. But I suppose, well, maybe it's not all that much easier doing it the digital route. It's all much the same, just trying to understand things from all sides.
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate to start in digital. I started doing that stuff in digital, and then later, as I was introduced to like some really talented folks in the visual effects industry and people that worked, in film and like have this like real appreciation for true sculpture. And I started to realize that like, you can't really consider yourself a modeler and a sculptor if you haven't really worked with the traditional stuff, the clay, like building in clay. And so I went from having symmetry and being able to just pose a character with 3D tools to doing it with like a wire armature and just plopping clay on there. I remember I took my first clay sculpture class with John Brown, who was he's a professor at the Noman School of Visual Effects, or I guess they don't really call them professors there, more instructors. But he's worked on tons of films and done character design and creature design, but in his private life, he actually does the gallery work where he builds giant statues for private collectors and things like that. So you can imagine an incredibly talented sculptor. And I took his class for the first time, and I remember I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go in and I'm going to do a boxer in full pose, like full action pose. And wow, that was one of the most painful creative experiences of my life.
How was he with critiques? Was he quite blunt and harsh?
Yeah, it's a good question. He was very instructive. The way that he kind of ran his courses, he's very instructive from from sort of a lecture perspective. So he kind of goes through principles, and he's very much. My interpretation of it was, by the end of it, is that he kind of sees it as you either are going to get this or you aren't, and you have to apply it. He's like, I give you the information. And with critiques, he would always kind of just like, he'd look at stuff and it was very repetitive because his methodology was so direct that it was pretty short. The critiques were like, well, it's like, I can tell you understand how muscles work, but your anatomy is off and your form and shape is off. And he would kind of just do some stuff, he'd just kind of sculpt over it in like 5 minutes and 10 minutes. And it would just be like, wow, that's amazing. But then I'd have to take that and figure out what to do with it. Basically, it was up to me, which I actually really appreciated. And I kind of like that way of learning.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Like what sort of feedback works best for you? That's sort of really honest and blunt feedback, although a more sort of encouraging, gentler approach.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an adjunct professor in my free time, and I personally, when I am instructing somebody else, I tend to give a lot of information. I go into the what's and the whys and then the hows, and I show how, which is very time consuming. I find that is the most effective for people that are trying to learn something where you can consistently get them to the place that they need to be. But for myself, I'm such a hard learner. I like I like putting myself in the worst possible position. I think it's just become like my status quo of life, is that the more challenging or hard it is, the better I am. So it's interesting. It's like, I don't teach the way that I would like to be taught, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
Like, I try to consider all people's perspectives, and I imagine not everybody's like me. Some people need additional help.
Yeah, for sure. We had an amazing lecturer at art school, Jennifer Ord. She was a force to be reckoned with, or still is. I don't know where she is these days and what she's doing, but she was one to give really, really harsh feedback. Short woman, but geez, she could pack a punch with her critiques, and it would kind of make or break you. And I think it was so valuable, particularly for that field. If you are going into the gallery side, I mean, there's people who are just going to like smash your work, or any artistic field, I suppose. Even if you're getting into the entertainment arts, like, you kind of have to perform and push yourself. And if you can't deal with a bit of criticism, you're just not going to get very far, I think.
Yeah.
At least if you're like working with teams, or I suppose even with the galleries as well. Not everyone's going to like what you've got to bring.
Yeah, which is true.
A sort of tenacity.
Absolutely, it is. I kind of think of it as like when you're, if I ever have kids one day, or need to be an educator for young people, it's like you kind of have to. I don't know. I think that there's a way to do that. There's many ways to do that. You can be very blunt and super harsh, and for some people, it's kind of mean. I've experienced mean before. I've heard horror stories, like for sculptors like John Brown that work with people like James Cameron. There's those stories that only heard rumors of that, like directors, and not necessarily James Cameron, but directors will kind of go through your work and they're just like literally throw it in the trash in front of you. Like that's not good, and do it over. And it's like, man, that would be, I mean, that's another level. I mean, I guess if you need to prepare for something like that, I guess it depends on what industry, but either way, it's absolutely something that needs to be learned. It's just a matter of how you go about it and building confidence. I feel like it's just confidence in yourself, like to know that no matter what somebody says, it's not going to affect you personally. It's like removing the personal aspect of things seems to be the way to go.
Yeah, I agree with that. But it's obviously difficult with art when you're tapping into, especially if you're doing, I suppose, independent art or I suppose with that you're digging deep into yourself to try and communicate something, and then be told that it's crap.
Right.
Start again. I can see you're trying to say something, but you're not doing it very well. So find another way.
Exactly.
I think that's good as well, just to force you out of going with whatever the first idea is that comes to your mind about how to express something.
Right.
And I suppose in entertainment art, we're looking at a sort of thumbnailing process, but the same should happen with independent arts. We're sketching out variations of an idea and trying to find if that is the best way to do what you want to do.
Right. Absolutely.
I see Evan is asking here, is there a particular type of drawing you recommend for someone just learning digital art, like shapes or characters or environments? What's the best way to get started? An exercise we did it at Varsity very early on was to set up a still life of various objects, but they had been painted white. And then set up with a kind of spotlight over it. And then you just focused on doing values, your sort of lights and darks, and just looking for the shapes there and getting control over your pencil to try and shade those things evenly. That's pretty much where we started. There's some cool resources out there like drawbox.com, I think it's .com, where, as the name suggests, it starts with really like drawing boxes and turning them around in space and understanding what happens to them in terms of perspective, and if you're looking above or from below. That's really helpful to start seeing shapes rather than just the thing that you're trying to draw, the overall thing. We're looking for the shapes within that, or the shapes that it makes and how it engages with everything around it. Now, what do you think is like a good point for people to start?
Yeah, I think what you suggest is really great advice. It's at least for me, when going through the traditional sort of the gamut of traditional stuff, it's a lot of it. I think what's easy to associate with the brain is characters, as humans, with people. Starting with figure drawing classes, just drawing what you see is usually the best place to begin, in my opinion. And to your point on the value, edge, all of these sort of breakdowns of like what makes a drawing, of course, those things are absolutely essential, and you absolutely should learn those things. But the repetition and application on humans and figures, I always found to be something that helped develop my skill and my understanding of the way I think about things. And then I was able to kind of go in and tackle other things that I find interesting. But I think to your interests, like with nature and animals and creatures, I think those are very similarly the same thing, just things that we know, things that we understand and see regularly. I find are the best. Like trying to do like starting with like an alien, some unimagined thing that hasn't been seen before is less likely to be successful as opposed to something that your skills.
I think you're more prone to making excuses as well with something that doesn't really exist for like why something looks a certain way, but you're not sure why it doesn't work. So it's difficult to spot the mistakes, and you say, oh well, it's just my style, or I just wanted it to be like that, to kind of avoid engaging with where the actual problem is, or it's just too difficult to see the problem because you don't have that familiarity or something to relate it to.
Absolutely. Well, and there's the fundamentals of character design. One of the books that I picked up when I was pretty young was, I was big into character design, and I picked up Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's How to Draw Characters the Marvel Way. And they would do it basically, and Disney does it differently. Like if you look at like a Disney character, I'll just do this really quick here. Like a Disney character, I think, is if you have the shape of a head, a Disney character is 3 heads tall in terms of body proportion. So you would have like head, this would be torso, this would be waist down. The Marvel way, the heroic, which I think comes from Andrew Loomis, I think, is like considered like the anatomy, like idealized version. The idealized version of a male figure, I think, is if you have the shape of the head, it's 6 heads tall. Something like that. And then you have these idyllic human proportions that are like 7 heads tall. So like the torso becomes longer, the legs become longer, like the proportions between, as you kind of go through, those things start to change. And even just like starting to learn those concepts and those fundamentals that are, I feel like art is subjective. These are just like ideas that I think help get people to a place where they can then start to break the rules and change things a little bit, which I always find really impressive when you find artists that just do things differently, not just for the sake of doing them differently, but just because they kind of get bored with the same repetition,
Yeah. Well, I found quicker ways to do things under pressure in that industry, having to solve some of these problems and do it with a fairly quick turnaround. I think you find some interesting ways to get a similar impression of things, and then a kind of style can emerge from that.
Right.
Which I think is quite interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I think about oh, sorry, you're still going.
Good. I was thinking about, someone was talking the other day about style being what you get wrong when you're trying to replicate another artist's work, if you're doing a study. And sometimes through that study and in struggling to get it right, you stumble across a way to do something, or you don't realize you're doing it wrong, but it forms into its own unique thing to you, which I thought was an interesting take.
I like that. I think you develop your own understanding of that same principle.
Exactly. Yeah. Then you bring yourself into it. I think it's quite important.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's a great way to think about it.
Do you have something that you typically gravitate towards when you're not sure what to create, whether it's in 3D or with drawing?
It's a good question. I honestly think at this stage of where I'm at with drawing, it's kind of like what I was mentioning earlier. I've gotten so accustomed to replication that when it comes to pure organic thought, I've been surrounded by it in my career as a 3D artist, a technical artist. But I've gotten so accustomed to that. I now have to put these things into practice. So like even for today, putting together a pure ref board, just things that come to mind, just throwing some stuff together and kind of just starting from there. I think that's something that I'm like, I love that your attention and focus is on animals and wildlife. That's a great thing to always have in your pocket to fall onto. And I haven't really figured out what mine is yet. I think my natural brain is attracted more to an engineering minded thing. I like to build, surfaces, vehicles, architecture, buildings, those types of things, more rigid surfaces. But not to say that those aren't fun. I mean, we'll be posting actually tomorrow. We're going to be posting some content from Marcelo Villabona, who worked on Moon Control. We've been posting some Lightbox content, and he's classified as a concept artist and an architect, and he really just uses 3D for architecture. And I'm always fascinated by the way that people work and how they build those things, and often drawing in 2D to get there.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm gonna be relying on falling back onto your perspective videos to get back into the mindset of doing perspective by hand.
Yeah, I need to keep practicing that, because I don't really do any sort of environments or put some of the characters or the people from my portraits. They're seldom within any kind of space. So I haven't engaged with perspective all that much. So when it comes to the basics, I'm probably fine. But as soon as I put them in a space that needs to be convincing and realistic, I might find my skills fall short.
It's funny how there's
See you.
like these little pockets of attentions and focus that you can put your time on, and it's like each one has its own challenges. Each one's presented with something that you may have to like recap on, or like remind yourself, like, oh yeah, how do I do that again?
Yeah. I suppose that's that constant advice. Keep going back to your fundamentals. People get so tired of hearing. But it's true. It's true.
It is.
I'm really struggling with this guy.
Thanks, Evan. Evan's dropping out. Thanks, Evan. It looks like United Arts Arena gave us a wave.
Hey. Nice.
Oh yeah, look at you over there. I love that. That's looking great.
It's in a bit of a messy state, as all things must go through. It takes me a while with that. I think quite early on. Well, maybe not all that early on. It still happens to me from time to time. I get so frustrated because you get to this ugly stage, which you just have to go through, but you sit there for a long time sometimes. But I just have to like force myself to step back, zoom out, top up the coffee if needs be. But yeah, I just have to accept that at some point it's going to look bad. It starts off with a nice little sketch. It starts looking like what you're envisioning, and then you start putting paint down. All hell breaks loose.
Right. Yeah, that's the one thing that I've seen pretty consistently in any medium is, as you say, like the broad gestural stuff. If you get too focused on detail, like I feel like I've been doing that today. I just like I get caught up in an area and then I zoom out and like, oh, that doesn't look like I thought it did. It's like you have to jump in real quick and pop back out, view it from a broader perspective, and work your way up to that last 10%. But it's like the 80% is really the most time consuming and the easiest one to mess up.
For sure. Have you watched Pinocchio yet? It's change of topic completely here.
I love it. I actually haven't, and I love Del Toro, and I found like for some reason I think I was noticing that there was so many, like I think the IP for Pinocchio became publicly accessible, just like Alice in Wonderland did and Peter Pan. I think a lot of those Disney stories, or rather they weren't Disney stories, but Disney bought them up, 70 years ago. I'd noticed a lot of Pinocchio stories coming up, and I was like, for some reason that always, like in my mind, I'm less interested in it when it's not unique. But
yeah,
I'm curious to hear your take on it. Did you find it to be enjoyable?
I haven't watched it yet, but I was watching an interview a little bit before the stream with Del Toro talking about it, and it just sounds like something he's been building up to for quite a while. So I'm very keen to get in the zone and see what he does with it. But it sounds like a lot of stuff coming through from his childhood as well, and his approaches to stories. It was a fascinating interview, actually. Let's see who it was with. Just a cue by Tom or something. Let's see if I can find it.
Yeah, he's one of those people that's like truly artist for artists. Like he really sticks to like really creative subject matter, you know?
Yeah.
He never strays away from that, which I always appreciate.
Talks about how he's when he was much younger as a child, not really fitting in, and I put that in context of when it came to being recognized for his work, like coming onto the stage at his award ceremony like this, and approaching the stage, turning around, and suddenly now you're seeing everyone that you've been sitting with and all the people that he's admired through his career, all acknowledging or clapping and saying like, you're one of us. It is really interesting to hear him talk about that, and how that's was a particularly standout experience for him.
That's very cool. Well, I don't know what, it's like, I understand with directors, they have those projects that just, I forget what it was. There was a project that he was working on for like, I think it was his first big one before Pan's Labyrinth. It was like something like Chronos. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
He worked on for 10 or 15 years before he got it made, and I just can't imagine what it would be like to be, waiting to get something like that done. I mean, I've had creative projects that I've worked on for like months, sometimes come back to like throughout a year or two, but imagining 10 years of working on something and then getting it out there, it's like, that is some incredible dedication. Lass, just got your comment. To join the canvas, absolutely. If you just joined, let me just make sure. I will drop in the instructions. If you joined late, you probably didn't see them from the first post, but here you go. Love to have you join. Looks like Ryan just maybe lost connection, but he'll be back. And for you, for anybody just jumping in, feel free to draw whatever you'd like. Actually thought about this. If anybody has any issues with this, let me know. But we do have the option to play a little music, which I thought might be kind of cool. Hey, there you are.
Sorry about that. Phone turned off its hotspot again, for whatever reason. It's going so well. Anyway,
it says invalid. Lass is having issues joining. Lass, did you join the Artspace first? The first link you have to join, then you can join the canvas. Lass, sorry if I said that wrong.
This interview was on the Q with Tom Power channel on YouTube, and Del Toro was talking about disobedience as a virtue, and the strong theme of death, and he draws links between Kronos and Pinocchio, which I thought was quite interesting. So worth checking it out.
I'm for sure going to check that out.
Okay, let me close this browser window in case it does something to me again. Okay, let me figure out this drawing.
Lassie, just give us an update if you're still having issues. First link says invalid invitation. The other says nothing here. Okay, let's do it the old-fashioned way. I will drop you a new link here. Let's try this. Okay, I'm going to drop in a looks like the exact same link. This is an invitation to the Artspace. And then once you get into the Artspace, you should be able to go into the projects and you'll see Magma Clubhouse and you'll find our canvas here. Or I will also...
We have a new person on the
Nice.
canvas.
All right, cool. Welcome.
Are there any particular surfaces that intrigue you at the moment when it comes to replicating?
I've been on this fix lately of World War II fighter planes for some reason.
Interesting.
I think we've talked about this in the past. I'm a pretty big history buff, and I love consuming history, anything history related. But I am always intrigued by just the engineering and the design of aircrafts. That's something that I've actually been wanting to recreate the British fighter plane that was used in World War II. In particular, I don't know why it was. I kind of got on this fix of. I was watching. I see. What did I watch? I was watching. It's Christopher Nolan's latest film on. I can't believe I can't remember the name of this. On World War II, Dunkirk. It was about the Battle of Dunkirk, and in particular, that fighter plane that was used, that was portrayed in the film, was very effective in World War II in defending, the British islands. And then I watched the Churchill Darkest Hour. I don't know. Have you seen that one yet?
No, not yet.
It was basically just the perspective from the, getting focused on the British perspective. And I found it to be really fascinating and would love to. I want to recreate something in 3D, but I think I would love to get a really, refined drawing. That might be a challenge that I put to myself to do here soon, is develop one in full.
Sounds good. Have you done any sort of monthly challenges with 3D? Things like Sword Timber, for example, is quite a popular one.
Yeah, I never did that one, but I did do. It was a robot one in October.
Yes.
I did like a robot one with some friends, and I've been wanting to. Punisher on YouTube does some really incredible 3D challenges. You probably would have seen it. It's basically like it's a fixed camera perspective, orthographic views of people like walking. And people put together like a 5-second animation clip, and then he took all the best submissions and cut them into a video and played some music. It's like really vast, incredible environments and different styles. And he just did one recently where they provided some animation, like pre-rigged animated models of people doing like mixed martial arts, and the goal was to create your own environment and scene and people like, fighting or practicing martial arts. Wow. But that one actually turned out to be really cool.
That sounds like fun. It must be interesting trying to piece everyone's things together and different.
Oh yeah.
Were they all like different styles of the similar thing? Or?
Yep, totally different styles. And that's the cool thing, is that you get this very diverse like array of styles and things get jammed into one video. It ends up the martial arts one was like, it was like a 2 or 3 hour video. I think there's that many submissions that are like 5 seconds each that you can make a 2 or 3 hour video. All right. I gotta stop messing around over here. You found a good way to do like a watercolor?
It's tricky with Magma. For those with a Blaze subscription, there is one of the rough brushes. Which one is it? The thick rough has quite an interesting stamp. But with that, I would need to drop the opacity and density down quite a bit. Let's see. Darker color. Yes, you can sort of get it, but obviously the kind of bleeding into itself thing you're not quite going to get. You kind of have to slowly build that up with just lower opacity.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a technique I am familiar with.
So bad at watercolor. But planning things out from to preserve your light
Right.
spaces. Always struggled with it.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. That's how I learned how to do just general, value and shading, like 10% and just build up.
Yeah, that's a good way to go. I suppose I got too comfortable with acrylic painting and just being able to paint over anything. Didn't really matter.
Right.
Yeah, just paint over all your mistakes. Made the tone. Although at one point we were using paint that was quite difficult to get over the darks. It had a bit of a slight sheen to it. So if you try to put a light color over it, you'd have to really lay it on thick and do quite a few layers. Because I used to paint. I've painted a couple of murals, wall murals, back in the day. It's been quite a while since I did something like that. That's a lot of fun to do.
What did you what kind of paint were you using?
It would always be most of the time it was like a water-based acrylic, but there was actually a water-based enamel that we used. I think it was an enamel. It was a Dulux Pearl Glow. Such vibrant color. It was amazing.
Well, that sounds
open up a tin and you want to jump inside of it. It's such gorgeous color.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it was normally water-based stuff that we'd work with, and pretty durable to deal with all the weathering that goes on.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because I mean, it's something sitting in the sun. it can fade pretty quickly if you're using a low quality paint. Doesn't take long at all. Why is this not looking right? Come on. To keep remembering, I've set up some new shortcut keys for my tablet here. So have to keep remembering, fumble around a little bit.
So what are you using?
My keyboard's a little out of the way.
What are you using for your tablet?
I'm using an XP Pen Artist 12 2nd gen at the moment. It's a bit small. Nice for traveling. It's fairly compact, but it does get a bit small. And I normally don't use the express keys on a tablet all that much. I did a lot when I started out, when my tool set is very limited. But as you start using more things, you need to switch between different tools and you learn more shortcuts. And very quickly start feeling like 6 to 8 buttons on the side of a tablet just isn't enough.
Right.
So I just reach for my keyboard. I find that works better.
Yeah, it is. It's so funny. I'm so dependent on my keyboard.
Have you seen the tour box?
No.
little controller. That looks really interesting because it's got instead of just being a button controller with every button being the same, it's got different feels to them. There's different knobs as well, and each one has its own sort of unique tactile feel, so that the impression I get is that it's a more sort of intuitive way to work, and you can really feel what control you're using, rather than just kind of guessing a little bit with your tablet keys if you don't want to look off to the side.
Right.
And
you can
program a lot into it, because it's got so many different knobs, and then it's got a sort of modifier key as well, which then adds more to each of those knobs. And people seem to use that a lot with video editing and painting as well, doing animation.
Right. I might have to look into that. I think I've been nervous and scared to change my setup. Every time I need like a window of time to practice with it, so I can get back to being good.
Yeah. Get good. Yeah, that always takes time, testing out new tools.
Yeah.
What is your first tablet? I vaguely recall you telling me.
My first tablet?
Yeah.
Ooh, I started off with like this the Intuos. I guess for my generation, it was like the Intuos 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think eventually I did go up to the Intuos 4, which I still actually have. But when I was in college, all of our labs were Cintiq labs, and once I got access to that stool and that Cintiq, it was like I could never go back.
Yeah, it's quite a different experience. I enjoy seeing different takes on screen versus screenless tablets. Because I think especially at the beginning, it's like, the screen tablet looks like the shiny Pro thing. But I see a lot of professionals really still prefer working on screenless tablets. I don't know if it's a sort of ergonomics thing. Well, for me, I think it's more of an ergonomics thing.
Yeah.
My posture tends to be a lot better than with a small screen tablet in front of me.
Yeah, and I think for me, it was very specific to like digital sculpture. Like that was really tough for me to do, like the disassociation between, obviously, I mean, with an Intuos, it's like you're drawing on a pad and then looking at the screen. I could not. I mean, I got good at it. I got good enough at it. I won't say good, but I got good enough at it that I felt proficient. But eventually, it was like once I got this Cintiq, my productivity went up. But I've never tried. I think it is because I'm so married to the keyboard that the idea of switching to like a Wacom. I think what is it, the Wacom 1 that is just a screen, that runs Windows. I love it. I actually really want one, but it's like the idea of, I guess I would have to get used to this device that you're talking about to be able to properly use my keys. Because, if you think about it, it's like I have 10 years, more like 15 years of conditioning with my left hand with the Control, Shift, and Alt keys.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be difficult to program that out.
Yeah. It's probably a good lesson for artists to not get married to one thing and learn to be adaptable so you can appreciate the new stuff.
Yeah, I think so. Be flexible. But I suppose with something like this, I mean, it's really kind of two options for how you can work. It's either screen or no screen.
Right.
Not a mouse.
Not a mouse. That's the only thing you can say. Hopefully you're not using a mouse.
I think you can do a bit of modeling in Blender with a mouse. But
yeah,
that's about it.
Definitely. I have, I have this weird, it's not weird, it's just like my workflow is like if I'm going through menus, just clicking on stuff, dragging things, moving things around, I can very easily just stick to the mouse. But I always keep my Cintiq. I have like a dual monitor setup where I keep a Cintiq to my right and then my setup to the left, and I can kind of go in and switch over and just, jump on the other desk next to me. And it's kind of what I'm doing right now.
I actually zoomed out in a while, Steve. Ooh, nice. Damn. That's looking cool. That's
Thanks. I haven't zoomed out myself. Yeah, dang, look at yours. I'm liking that.
I like this little cat and mouse here on the left hand side.
Lassie's showing us up over here. Look at that one. That's already looking like something.
I need to sharpen up some details.
I love it. What are we thinking about inside the Magma text? I grabbed some like tribal patterns I thought would be kind of cool to do.
Oh yeah? Yeah, that sounds good. I was actually just thinking of it being empty initially and just filling in more around it, but I suppose time is limited.
I very much look forward to, as we'll be doing this stream weekly, we can experiment with all kinds of things. I was thinking, since we're calling this one Magma Clubhouse, I thought it might be kind of cool to maybe create an outline of like a cool, like Peter Pan clubhouse type thing.
Ah, yeah.
And then
I like that.
Yeah, then we'll make the clubhouse logo. We'll get as many people in here as we can to make a logo.
That sounds good. I like that idea.
Cool.
Once we get a few more people in, I think that'll be cool. Did you ever have a...
Oh, no. Thanks, Ollie.
have a treehouse as a kid?
Sorry, I missed a bunch of that, but I just heard, did I have a treehouse? Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, it was actually, I was talking to my neighbors about this pretty recently about the first time that I got a tetanus shot was I was building a treehouse with my cousin. I mean, full hammers and nails, and we even had a zip line. We built a zip line so you could exit. And I think I can't remember exactly how I fell out, but I fell out, and it was a good, I don't know, maybe 15 feet up. It was pretty high. And I fell off, and there just happened to be a rusted barbed wire fence to the left of it. No. And I fell and got pretty mangled up, and that's when I got my first tetanus shot.
Sound like fun.
How about you?
The tetanus part. No, yeah. I didn't. Not that I recall. We had like a little platform at a friend's house between friends' properties. Two of my friends were sort of diagonal neighbors to one another, so we had this platform that we'd often go sit in, but it was on the corner wall connecting the properties. But I think that's kind of it. I remember a friend injuring himself on a zip line not out of a treehouse, but friends had this. What did we call it? It was a sort of accommodation meets hall for hire team building space with a few like bungalows and bunk beds. And there was a zip line there, and we used to get together there quite frequently. And the one night, this one friend of ours, Rex, goes down the zip line, and the cable snaps. And unfortunately, the pulley thing, or the little wheel along the line, came down and hit him in the face.
Oh man!
He had. Yeah, well, like I think it was on the side of his face, and he had quite like a swollen cheek, a bit of a chipmunk. He was fine.
Yeah,
but bounce back when you're young like that. But
true.
Yeah, I've never forgotten that story. A whole lot of us there. Oh, I know why it happened, because they were being stupid, of course. a friend decided to jump on his back and then go down the zip line. So it was just too much weight.
Oh, okay.
That's why it happened. It wasn't just a freak thing.
So funny. I feel like everybody's got a story like that. It's just like you said, you're resilient, but eventually that fades away.
Yeah. It gets a little more difficult to stay up all night nowadays.
Right.
Do you have a thing that you like doing outside of art-related stuff, or besides researching a bit of history things?
Yeah, I mean, man, my interests are probably I get pulled into all kinds of random things. I mean, I spend a lot of time in VR, which is very similar to spending time in building and constructing. But I like a lot of like different creative tools. I get into Sketchfab and some of these other things, but like totally outside of art. I mean, something that I've been doing for quite a long time. I just moved from California to Texas pretty recently, so I lost access to it a bit, but I was climbing for quite a while, outdoor climbing. And that was
outdoor, you say?
What's that?
Did you say it was outdoor climbing that you're doing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
Started in climbing gyms and sort of got a little bit further, was ready to test out the waters and, go full in. But I haven't done that in quite a while. I spent a lot of time. I think throughout my life, I spent a lot of time outdoors. I got really big into backpacking and doing long, like, camping trips. And, I love getting outside and having to walk 10 or 15 miles to get to a camp destination and bring all your stuff. That's something that I've done.
Are there some spots around like near you in Texas where you can do that sort of thing quite easily?
Not nearly as many,
okay,
unfortunately, but I have found a few. I've been slowly kind of getting out on the weekends and doing a bit more, but it kind of just, it's different. The West Coast in the U.S. is just so densely populated with so much terrain and obviously mountains.
Yeah, it's been such a long time since I went on a good hike. Used to do it a bit during school, but I don't know why. For whatever reason, when I got older, there's just much bigger gaps between doing something like that. But I think when we go back to Georgia in the next few months, the country, not the state,
right?
They've got some really nice mountain spots there. I'm keen to go and explore, but maybe not camping. I don't know. We'll see. But there are some really nice mountains to go paragliding in, and I've never been paragliding, so keen to give it a try.
Yeah.
Have you done it before?
I have. I've actually I've been skydiving. I think I'm up to 8 times now.
Wow.
And I did paragliding I did a 2-month-long backpacking trip with a friend through South America. We started in Peru. This is another thing that was a big part of my life, was surfing for a long, long time. Yeah. So I lived in California for about 12 years and started surfing immediately and got the bug. So a buddy of mine, we decided to go down to Peru, and the goal was to really just started with, hey, let's just go find a place to go surf, find another country. And we're both goofy foot surfers. So
yeah,
which means when you're goofy, when you're traveling down the wave, you usually want to go left. You can go left or you can go right. And it's just more comfortable for a goofy rider to go left. So we were kind of new at the time, or not new. We'd just been surfing for maybe a few years and starting to get decent. And so we looked for the best left face wave in the world, and it was in Peru. Yeah, and it's a place called Chicama, Peru. It's just north of Trujillo, and there was so many people from all different countries that the town was a very small kind of fishing village, and we basically that was the plan. We kind of got the surf set up, and they were like, well, what else can we do? So we decided to backpack from Peru through Bolivia into Argentina a little bit, and then luckily enough, that time of the year, Rio was hosting Carnival. So we had the end of the trip after 2 months to finish with 5 days in Carnival in Rio. And
That's awesome.
It was definitely a trip of a lifetime.
Wow. When was the last time you went surfing?
Well, there is, funnily enough, in Texas, in Waco, Texas, there's one of the best wave pools in the country. I think, I don't know if it's the world. A lot of professional surfers will come in the off season. So when I first moved here, I was kind of missing it. And I used to live right on the beach, and I could just walk out of my house every morning before work, and I could go out. And I've just been missing that so much, and. So I was doing the wave pool thing for, maybe a few months. I guess it's been about a year since I went back.
I see. Yeah, it's so nice to get in the ocean recently. Not to surf, unfortunately, but we went to a little island in Thailand, Koh Samui, for a bit of a beach getaway over Christmas. Oh, it was so nice to get in the ocean again. It's been almost a year since I'd last been in the ocean, because I come from a little coastal city.
Okay.
But with where we've been traveling, most of the time we've been sort of inland and in different cities. So yeah, no beach time. And I start to feel it after a while. I think there's a little crankiness that builds up over time if I haven't had some salt water.
Isn't it true though? There's especially for somebody like you that's from a coastal city that grew up close to water. I found I grew up in Michigan, in between the Great Lakes, so I have a similar kind of experience. But being landlocked is really a thing. I feel like it definitely takes its toll if you're used to experiencing, being close to water.
Yeah, definitely. For a long time, at least, I've been quite distracted with all the shiny lights in the city, in the big city.
Right.
Because I've been in some much bigger cities than what I'm used to. So at least it's been sufficient distraction.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm definitely envious of your ability to relocate and travel so much. I mean, you must get such a great reward to be putting yourself in different environments.
Yep, lots of delicious things to eat everywhere. That's always our motivation. Is like, oh well, where, not like what sights to see, but more what there is to eat.
Right.
So
what's the best? Do you have like a top 10 list of places you've had the best food? Or
yeah, Anne and I go back and forth with this one from time to time. On our first trip to Thailand 3 years ago, when was it, 2019, we were on a different island in Thailand, quite close to this other one that we visited, and we didn't have a scooter or anything. Like I don't have a license, so we were just walking around everywhere, and we came across this one little restaurant. This crazy young Thai lady working there, and she made the most amazing masaman curry that we still talk about frequently. Think, we need to find something that will top that. But I don't know if over the time we've also elevated it even more in our minds, that I don't think anything will be able to match it. So maybe it's a futile search to try and find something as good.
Must have been.
So that was definitely one of the top things we've had. What else? In Georgia, we really enjoyed the dumplings there, but they've also got a dish. What is it called? It's like a lobio it was like a beans and smoked ham kind of stew, but in this clay pot you get served with it, and a cornbread often comes with it. Also, just so good.
Cornbread is addictive.
Another thing they've got is it's called shmarui. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation, but it's chicken in a creamy garlic sauce, and we're both pretty stupid nuts about garlic, so that really appeals to us. And yeah, we had some really good ones there.
Yeah, that sounds
Can't
incredible.
go wrong with garlic.
No.
Well, there is such a thing as too much garlic, which we bumped up against during those travels. It was a same dish, but the restaurant did it very differently, and it was sitting in a pool of like garlic oil. I don't know how many garlics were killed to make this dish, but it was just drenched. We stank of garlic for a couple of days. It was great.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on the garlic.
So good.
Well, we are 15 minutes over time here. I was
oh well.
Totally enthralled in this conversation and trying to figure out these tribal patterns, which could be better, but
yeah, sure. Thank you. This has been quite fun.
This has been great. I think, at this point, what I hope to do for you, Lassie, if you've got any friends that you want to bring in next time, feel free. We're going to do this again next Wednesday. One of the things I'd love to do with this is, obviously if you guys have time, stay in here and keep drawing, even if the stream is over. I would love if we can start to build up a community of people where we could, kind of keep working on these throughout the week, and we can highlight, what we did and start a new one the following week.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah, well, we'll see how we can progress this one, but for sure, I think next week I would love, once we start getting, a good chunk of people in here, we'll be able to take community feedback and what people would like to do for the next one. But I think maybe next one, let's plan on doing the clubhouse.
Yeah, that sounds good. Nice. Thank you everybody for joining. Thanks for hosting us, Solomon.
My pleasure. It's been super fun hanging with you guys, and we'll check in with everybody and see everybody next week.
Cool. Ciao.
Cheers, everyone.
Dun, dun.